The allergy clinic on Briarwood Lane closed at 4. I knew this because my husband reminded me every single week. "Don't worry about picking Zoe up," he'd say, already jingling his keys. "I know the route. She gets anxious with changes. I've got it handled, babe." And every Thursday for the past 14 months, he drove our 5-year-old daughter 40 minutes across Portland to see Dr. Lyman, the pediatric allergist he'd found after Zoe broke out in hives at a birthday party. He kept every appointment card. He tracked every medication adjustment in a spreadsheet on his phone. He packed her little backpack with her favorite stuffed otter and a juice box and a granola bar, and he brought her home 3 hours later, always calm, always smiling, always with a neat printout of the visit summary left on the kitchen counter. My husband was the best father I had ever seen. Everyone said so. My mother said so. My friends said so. The women in my book club called me lucky, and I believed them, because I was. Until the Thursday he couldn't go. It was mid-March. He woke up with 102 fever, chills rattling his teeth, barely able to lift his head off the pillow. Some stomach virus tearing through his office. I brought him ginger ale and called his cell to cancel, but he grabbed my wrist, his grip surprisingly strong for a man who looked like death. "Don't cancel." His voice was raw. "She can't miss this one. They're adjusting the protocol. If she skips, we have to start the whole cycle over." "I'll call ahead. Tell them you're coming instead. Just check in at the front desk, and they'll handle everything." Protocol, cycle. The word struck me as odd for an allergy appointment. But he was sick and miserable, and I'd never questioned him before, so I kissed his hot forehead and told him to sleep. Zoe chattered in the back seat the whole drive. She was 5.5, all knobby knees and tangled brown hair and gap-toothed opinions about everything. She didn't seem anxious at all. She seemed excited. "Do I get the grape sticker today, Mommy? The grape ones are the best." Last time I got 2 because I didn't cry. "Didn't cry about what, sweetheart?" "The pokey part." "But it doesn't really hurt." "Daddy says I'm brave like an astronaut." "The pokey part. Allergy tests involved skin pricks sometimes. That tracked. But something in the back of my skull hummed, a low, quiet alarm I couldn't name. The address he'd texted me led to a medical complex near the Willamette River. Not a standalone clinic. A sprawling glass and steel building with a corporate lobby and a directory that listed 30 different practices. I found the suite number on the 4th floor. The sign on the door didn't say Allergy Clinic. It said Cascadia Biomedical Research Institute, Pediatric Division, Research Institute. I stood in the hallway, Zoe tugging my hand, staring at those words. Maybe it was a specialty practice that also did research. Lots of clinics were attached to universities. I pushed through the door. The waiting room was nothing like a doctor's office. No cartoon murals, no fish tanks. It looked like a tech startup. Frosted glass partitions, ambient lighting, tablets mounted on the walls displaying rotating images of smiling children and molecular diagrams. A receptionist in a sleek blazer looked up. "Mrs. Callahan? We've been expecting you. Zoe, honey, good to see you." She knew my daughter by name. My daughter grinned and waved like she'd been here 100 times. The receptionist handed me a clipboard. "Just need your signature on the weekly log. Mr. Callahan usually handles this, but since you're here today, same process." I looked at the form. At the top, in small professional type, Participant Weekly Check. In Study CBI, 4419. Phase 2 Pediatric Evaluation of Nexeril, Compound NXR 227. In subjects aged 4-8 with no prior immunological contraindications. The humming in my skull became a roar. "What is this?" My voice came out flat. Controlled. I didn't want to scare Zoe. The receptionist blinked. The study check-in? Your husband usually... What study? What is Nexeril?" She glanced at Zoe, then back at me. Her professional composure flickered. "Maybe we should speak with Dr. Lyman. Let me get the coordinator." A woman appeared within 2 minutes, efficient and smiling, a lanyard swinging from her neck that read Clinical Trial Coordinator. She ushered me into a side office, while a nurse led Zoe to what she called the playroom. Zoe went happily, like she'd done it dozens of times. Because she had. The coordinator, a woman named Diane, sat across from me with a thick binder. She must have read the confusion on my face, because her smile became careful. "Mrs. Callahan, your daughter has been enrolled in study CBI 4419 since January of last year. It's a Phase 2 clinical trial for Nexeril, an experimental immunomodulatory drug developed by Aethon Pharmaceuticals. The study evaluates safety and efficacy in healthy pediatric subjects with no prior autoimmune history. Your husband signed the informed consent as primary legal guardian. Healthy subjects, not sick children being treated, healthy children being tested on. I never consented to this." Diane's smile vanished. She opened the binder and turned it toward me. There, on the consent form, was my husband's signature. Beneath it, a line for second parent or guardian. It was signed too, a looping cursive that looked vaguely like mine but wasn't. I had never seen this document in my life. "That's not my signature." The color left Diane's face. The next 90 minutes were a blur of urgent phone calls, hushed conferences, and my daughter sitting in a room down the hall eating animal crackers, unaware that her mother's world was collapsing. Dr. Lyman finally appeared. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, with a kind of earnest intensity that probably looked reassuring in a lab coat. He confirmed what Diane had told me, but added details that made the floor feel like it was tilting. Zoe had received 72 doses of Nexeril over 14 months. The drug was designed to modulate immune response in children, a potential blockbuster for preventing autoimmune disorders. The trial required subjects with clean immunological baselines, meaning children with no allergies, no chronic conditions, no family history of autoimmune disease on either side. My family had none. My husband's family had none. Our daughter was, in clinical terms, a pristine subject. "She's shown no adverse effects," Dr. Lyman said quickly, as if that would comfort me. "Her blood work has been excellent. She's actually one of our strongest responders. The data from her participation has been—" Stop talking. My voice was a blade. "Who is paying for this?" Another pause. "Compensation for participant families is standard in Phase 2 trials. The enrollment agreement specifies a monthly stipend of $3,200, deposited into the designated account, plus a completion bonus upon full study duration of 12 additional months. $3,200 a month. For 14 months. That was nearly $45,000. Paid to an account I knew nothing about. I took Zoe home. She fell asleep in the car, clutching her otter. I drove on autopilot, my hands steady, my mind screaming. When I pulled into the garage, I sat in the dark for 10 minutes, listening to my daughter breathe. My husband was asleep when I carried Zoe to her room. I tucked her in, closed her door, and went to the kitchen. I opened my laptop and began searching. Nexeril. Compound NXR 227. Aethon Pharmaceuticals. The results came in waves. Aethon was a mid-size pharma company based in San Francisco, recently flush with venture capital after promising early results in immunomodulation. NXR 227 had passed Phase 1 trials in adults. Phase 2 was the pediatric expansion, testing on children aged 4 to 8 across 6 sites nationwide. Portland was one of them. I found the clinicaltrials.gov listing. The principal investigator was Dr. Marcus Lyman. The sponsor was Aethon. The study had enrolled 43 pediatric subjects. My daughter was one of them. The known side effects listed included fatigue, mild gastrointestinal distress, and, in a smaller font that made my blood freeze, potential long-term immunological recalibration, meaning the drug might permanently alter how a child's immune system functioned. Permanently alter. I closed the laptop. I walked to the bathroom and threw up. At 6 a.m, I heard him shuffling in the kitchen. Still sick, still pale, but vertical. Making coffee with the careful precision he brought to everything. I sat at the island and watched him. "How was the appointment?" he asked, not looking up. Did they adjust the dosage? There it was. Dosage. Not treatment. Not allergy medication. The language of the trial, spoken so casually it was clear he'd stopped distinguishing between the lie and the truth long ago. It went fine, I said. Good. He sipped his coffee. She's doing so well. The doctor says she's one of the best responders they've ever seen. We should be proud. Proud. He said it without irony, without shame. As if enrolling our daughter in an experimental drug trial without my knowledge was a parenting achievement. I spent the next 3 days in a state of controlled detonation. On the outside, I packed lunches, drove carpool, attended a PTA meeting where I discussed bake sale logistics with women who had no idea my husband had turned our child into a lab subject. On the inside, I was dismantling our life piece by piece. I called my cousin Angela, a nurse practitioner in Denver. I read her the study details without telling her it was Zoe. Her reaction was immediate. Phase 2 immunomodulators in kids that young? That's aggressive. The drug might be safe short-term, but long-term immune recalibration in a developing child? Nobody knows what that looks like in 20 years. That's literally what the trial is designed to find out. Whoever enrolled their kid in this better understand they're gambling with their child's future immune function. I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. My college roommate's sister, Dana Park, a former federal prosecutor who now specialized in medical fraud and pharmaceutical litigation. She listened to me for 40 minutes without interrupting, then said 3 words that cracked my chest open. This is criminal. She explained it calmly. Forging a parent's signature on a clinical trial consent form was federal fraud. Enrolling a minor in a pharmaceutical study without full informed parental consent violated FDA regulations, state law, and roughly a dozen ethical guidelines. The monthly payments constituted unreported income and potentially wire fraud if they crossed state lines. And if the drug caused any harm to Zoe, even years from now, my husband and every person who facilitated the enrollment could face criminal charges. But here's the thing, Margot, Dana said, using my first name the way prosecutors do when they want you to focus. We need to understand why. Is he desperate for money? Is he connected to the company? Why would a father do this? I didn't have an answer yet, but I was going to get one. The filing cabinet in our bedroom closet wasn't locked. My husband wasn't the paranoid type. He was the confident type, the type who believed his charm and competence made him untouchable. He kept meticulous records because he was proud of his systems, not because he was afraid of being caught. I found the Athon folder in the second drawer. Inside was a copy of the consent form with my forged signature. A stack of monthly statements from an account at a credit union I'd never heard of, showing deposits of exactly $3,200 on the 15th of every month. A printed email chain between my husband and someone named Victor Rios. Subject: CBI 4419 Recruitment Pipeline. I read the emails. My hands didn't shake. I was past shaking. The first email was from 3 years ago, before Zoe was born. Victor Rios wrote, "Enrollment for the pediatric arm is behind schedule. We need clean baseline subjects, no family autoimmune history on either side, both parents Caucasian or East Asian preferred for genetic consistency. Compensation has been increased to attract participants. Top recruiters will receive the enhanced referral bonus structure as discussed." My husband replied, "I have a prospect. My wife has 0 family history of autoimmune conditions. I've verified her medical records through her mother's physician. No asthma, no allergies, no lupus, no RA, nothing. 3 generations clean on both sides. We're planning to start a family soon. Timeline could work for phase 2 enrollment at 4 years of age. What's the enhanced bonus? Victor. For a verified pristine, baseline subject who completes the full 2-4-month protocol, referral bonus of $15,000 upon enrollment and an additional $20,000 at study completion, on top of the monthly stipend. Total package north of $120,000. My husband, I'm in. I'll keep you posted on the timeline. I read it again. Then again. The date on that first email was 2 months before he proposed to me. He had checked my family's medical history before he asked me to marry him. He had verified my genetics through my mother's doctor. He had calculated the timeline for having a child, waiting 4 years, and enrolling that child in a drug trial worth 6 figures. I wasn't his wife. I was his supply chain. I photographed every page. I forwarded every email to Dana. Then I put everything back exactly as I'd found it and went to pick up Zoe from kindergarten. She ran to me across the blacktop, her backpack bouncing. Her face lit up with the uncomplicated joy of a child who didn't know she was a line item on a pharmaceutical spreadsheet. I held her so tight she squirmed. "Mommy, you're squishing me." "I know, baby. I'm sorry. I just missed you." Dana moved fast. Within 48 hours, she had filed a complaint with the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations, contacted the Institutional Review Board overseeing the Cascadia trial, and retained a family law attorney named Kenji Watanabe, who specialized in custody cases involving child endangerment. She also made a call I hadn't expected to a journalist at the Oregonian named Faye Hutchins, who had been investigating Aethon Pharmaceuticals for months over irregularities in their recruitment practices. Faye told Dana that Zoe wasn't the only child enrolled under questionable consent. 3 other families at the Portland site had reported concerns. 2 had been paid off. One father, a man in Beaverton, had been threatened with a defamation suit when he tried to go public. The pattern was consistent. Aethon's recruiters targeted families through intermediaries, often a parent who could be incentivized to enroll their own children and recruit others. My husband wasn't just a participant. He was a recruiter. When Dana told me this, I was standing in my kitchen, watching Zoe draw a picture of our family at the dining table. 4 stick figures, a house, a son. The simplest version of our life, the version that had never been real. "How many?" I asked. "We think at least 7 children through your husband's referrals alone," Dana said. "All meeting the pristine baseline criteria. All enrolled with single-parent consent. We're still mapping the network. 7 children. 7 families where one parent had no idea their child was swallowing experimental pills every week." The confrontation happened on a Saturday. Zoe was at my mother's house. I'd told my husband I wanted a quiet evening, just the 2 of us. He'd smiled, pleased. He opened a bottle of wine, put on jazz, settled into the couch like a man with no secrets. I sat across from him and placed a single sheet of paper on the coffee table. It was the email from Victor Reyes, the one dated 2 months before our engagement. The one where my husband wrote, "I have a prospect. My wife has 0 family history." He picked it up. I watched his face. The journey it took was almost fascinating in its precision, confusion, recognition, a micro-expression of something I can only describe as professional irritation, like an accountant who realizes he left a decimal in the wrong place. Then the mask slid back into place, smooth and warm. "Where did you get this?" "Your filing cabinet. The one you didn't bother to lock because you thought I'd never look." He set the paper down. He didn't deny it. He didn't bluster. He took a sip of wine and leaned back, studying me with an expression I'd never seen before. It was calculating, but also curious, as if he was seeing me clearly for the first time and finding the new version interesting. "You're smarter than I gave you credit for," he said softly. "That's my fault. I underestimated you. You enrolled our daughter in a drug trial. You forged my signature. You've been drugging her every week for over a year. Drugging is a loaded word." He frowned. "She's receiving a carefully monitored investigational compound under the supervision of qualified physicians. The safety profile is excellent. She hasn't had a single adverse event. If anything, her immune markers have improved. I've given her an advantage, a head start on a therapy that will be FDA approved within 2 years and costs thousands per dose. She's getting it for free." He believed it. That was the part that made my stomach turn. He wasn't performing. He genuinely believed he had done something clever, something beneficial. He had reframed child exploitation as premium healthcare. "You married me because of my genetics," I said flatly. "I married you because I loved you, His voice was steady. Your genetics were a bonus, an alignment of interests. I saw an opportunity to build something that would benefit everyone. Zoe is healthy. She's thriving. And yes, the compensation has been significant. That money paid off the house. It funded her college savings. It gave us the life you enjoy. He gestured around the living room, the tasteful furniture, the view of the Cascades through the picture window. You think this lifestyle came from my salary alone? The casualness of it took my breath away. He had woven the proceeds of our daughter's body into the fabric of our daily life. The mortgage, the savings account, the vacations. Every comfort was blood money. You recruited other children, I said. I connected families with an opportunity. He shrugged. Families who needed the money, whose children met the criteria. I vetted them carefully. I wouldn't refer a child with a questionable medical history. I have standards. Standards. I almost laughed. You forged consent forms. You bypassed the other parents. Because they would have said no for the wrong reasons. He leaned forward, his voice dropping to the tone he used when explaining something he considered obvious. Fear, ignorance, emotional overreaction, the same things you're feeling right now. But in 5 years, when Nexeril is on the market and these children have full immunity profiles that their peers would kill for, those parents will thank me, or they won't know, and their children will simply be healthier. Either way, the outcome is positive. The outcome is you made $120,000 per child. For the first time, a crack appeared, a tightening around his eyes. The money is compensation for my time and expertise. Recruitment, vetting, logistics. It's legitimate. It's fraud, I said. He stood up. The warmth was gone. What remained was something I'd only glimpsed in shadows before. A rigid, armored certainty that he was the smartest person in any room, and that the rules were suggestions written for lesser minds. If you go public with this, he said, his voice quiet and precise, you destroy our family. You destroy Zoe's college fund. You destroy the lives of 7 other families whose children are perfectly healthy and benefiting from cutting-edge medicine. And you destroy yourself, because every lawyer I work with will testify that you were aware, complicit, and consented. Your signature is on the form. It will be your word against a document. That's not my signature, and you know it. Prove it, he said simply. Handwriting analysis is subjective. Juries are unpredictable. And by the time it gets to trial, I'll have filed for custody on the grounds that you're experiencing a paranoid episode, threatening to remove our daughter from a physician-supervised medical program based on a conspiracy theory fueled by your own insecurity. He picked up his wine glass, swirled it, and took a calm sip. I've thought about this contingency, Margot. I think about every contingency. That's what I do. It's why I'm good at what I do. And what I'm telling you, as your husband, as the father of your child, is that the smartest move you can make right now is to finish your wine, go to bed, and let me handle this. Zoe has 10 months left in the study. After that, it's over. She'll be fine. We'll be fine. And we'll be $100,000 richer. Everyone wins. I looked at him. At this man I had slept beside for 6 years, whose child I had carried, whose coffee I had made that morning. I looked at him and saw the architecture of the trap he had built around me. Financial dependence, social isolation from anyone who might question him. The forged signature as both shield and weapon. But he had miscalculated one thing. He thought I was afraid of losing the life he'd built. He didn't understand that I'd already lost it the moment I read that email. I stood up. I picked up my phone and my keys. "Where are you going?" he asked, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face for the first time. "To pick up Zoe from my mother's house. And then to a hotel. And then, tomorrow morning, to the FBI field office on Southwest 1st Avenue. His composure cracked. "You wouldn't." "I already have. Dana Park filed the complaint 2 days ago. The FDA's criminal division has your emails. The IRB has suspended the Portland site pending investigation. And Faye Hutchins at the Oregonian is running the story on Tuesday. So when you talk about contingencies, Ryan, you missed one. You married a woman who would burn down everything you built to keep her daughter safe. And that's exactly what I'm doing. I walked out the front door. He didn't follow me. I think, in that moment, the man who planned for every variable finally encountered the one scenario his spreadsheets couldn't model: a mother who chose chaos over compliance. My mother didn't ask questions when I arrived at 11 at night with red eyes and a sleeping child in my arms. She just opened the door, made the guest bed, and held me while I cried. The next morning, while Zoe ate pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, I made the calls. Kenji Watanabe filed an emergency petition for sole custody based on child endangerment. The judge, a stern woman named Honorable Patricia Okafor, who had 3 children of her own, read the evidence and signed the order within 2 hours. My husband was served at our house that afternoon. His visitation was suspended pending investigation. He was ordered to surrender Zoe's passport. The FBI moved faster than I expected. 2 agents showed up at our house with a warrant 3 days later. They seized his computer, his phone, the filing cabinet, and a box of documents from his car. They also visited Victor Rios at Athon's Portland office. I heard later that Rios tried to shred files in the parking lot and was arrested on the spot. The Oregonian story broke on Tuesday, as promised. Faye Hutchins had spent months building the case, and my husband's arrest gave her the final piece. The headline was quiet and devastating. Portland father recruited children, including his own, for secret drug trials. The story went national within hours. CNN, The Washington Post. It trended on every platform. 7 families came forward. 7 mothers and fathers who learned, some from the article, some from FBI agents knocking on their doors, that their children had been enrolled in pharmaceutical testing without their knowledge. 2 of the children had developed mild autoimmune symptoms that their pediatricians had dismissed as normal childhood fluctuations. With the study data now public, the connection was clear. Nexeril was not as safe as Athon claimed. The trial took 8 months. My husband's legal team, funded by Athon until the company distanced itself and then funded by his parents, fought every charge. But the evidence was a mountain. The emails, the forged signatures, which 3 independent handwriting analysts confirmed were not mine. The financial records, showing $170,000 in payments routed through the credit union account. The testimony of Dr. Lyman, who cut a deal with prosecutors and described in devastating detail how my husband had served as Athon's top recruitment pipeline, hand-selecting families, coaching them on which details to share and which to hide, and in several cases forging consent documents himself. My husband took the stand in his own defense. He was polished, articulate, and utterly unconvincing. He described himself as a visionary, a father who wanted to give his daughter access to cutting-edge medicine, a man who connected struggling families with financial opportunities. When the prosecutor asked him why he forged my signature, he said he was protecting me from unnecessary anxiety. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on 11 counts, including fraud, forgery, conspiracy, and endangerment of a minor. He was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution to all 7 families. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was at home in the small apartment I'd rented in Selwood, helping Zoe build a blanket fort. She didn't know where her father was. She knew he was away. She knew Mommy was sad sometimes. She knew things had changed. But she was 5, and 5-year-olds are resilient in ways that break your heart and mend it at the same time. A year after the trial, I received a letter from one of the other mothers, a woman named Priya, whose son Arjun had been enrolled by her ex-husband through my husband's network. The letter was short. Dear Margot, I want you to know that Arjun is healthy. His immune panels are back to normal. The doctors say there's no lasting damage. I spent months being angry at you, not because you did anything wrong, but because your family was the center of the story that blew up my life. But my therapist helped me understand that you blew up your own life too, to protect your daughter and mine. I don't think I would have had the courage to do what you did. Thank you. I hope Zoe is well. I hope you are well, Priya. I read it at the kitchen table while Zoe was at school. The school where no one knew her last name was the one from the headlines. The school where she was just Zoe, the kid who loved dinosaurs and couldn't sit still during story time and had recently announced her intention to become a veterinarian astronaut. I put the letter in a box with the others. Notes from the other families, a card from Dana, a handwritten thank you from Faye Hutchins. Evidence that the worst thing that ever happened to me had also, somehow, led to the only thing I'd ever done that truly mattered. Last month, I took Zoe to her real pediatrician, a wonderful woman named Dr. Pham, who knew our full history and treated Zoe with the careful, transparent thoroughness that every child deserves. All her panels were clean. Her immune function was normal. There was no sign of lasting harm from 14 months of Nexeril. She's perfect, Dr. Pham said, smiling, healthy as a horse. I know, I said. I've always known. On the drive home, Zoe asked me a question from the back seat. Mommy, when is Daddy coming home? I looked at her in the rearview mirror. Her brown eyes, so much like his, so much like mine, searched my face for an answer I hadn't figured out how to give. Not for a while, sweetheart. But he loves you. And I love you. And you are safe. She considered this with the gravity of a 5-year-old philosopher. Okay, she said. Can we get ice cream? Yeah, baby, we can get ice cream. We drove through the Portland rain, the wipers keeping time like a heartbeat. The city was gray and green and alive. My daughter sang a song she'd learned at school. Something about a caterpillar becoming a butterfly, her voice small and clear and completely off-key. I listened, and for the first time in 2 years, I didn't hear anything underneath it. No alarms, no humming, no hidden frequencies. Just my daughter, singing